Good morning. Hello. I am Dave Milner, editor of The Shot. Welcome to another episode of The Sunday Shot. I am speaking to you from unceded Wurundjeri land, and Joe Dyer is not with us this week. She is away with Fuckboys, which is a theatre thing, not a proclivity for people lacking context. Uh, I should start again, but I'm going to keep rolling with this in the spirit of things. We have a fun panel. Just the three of us today. It's skewing millennial, it's skewing neurodiverse. John Delmenico, editor of The Chaser, thank you for joining us. How are you, mate?
I'm good, except for the accusation that I'm a millennial.
You're
How
not
dare you?
Gen Z town? We got you as well?
Yeah,
We
I'm
got
Gen Z.
representation? My apologies. Didn't mean to smear you like that. We I didn't know. I wouldn't have invited you. You broke
That's how Australian media works, yes.
valid. The next guest is a millennial. She's also neurodiverse. She's also a difficult woman. Grace Tame, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me. Although I will just clarify that I'm a boomer in spirit. So I might look like a millennial. Actually, I look more like I'm about 12 years old. But yeah, I've got the spirit of like a 60-year-old.
Well,
So it
then we
like
just
evens out.
represented. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We can
actually. So my like median age is probably my actual age.
we have a bunch of really heavy things to talk about. We are going to discuss the mess in West Asia and Iran. We're going to discuss the ABC. We're going to discuss John's piece around the NDIS and reporting on it. We are going to discuss something alarming about the Queensland Australian of the Year that Grace has informed me about that I was not previously aware. And we're going to talk about Afroman of all things. It's going to be a little eclectic. We should start with the mess in West Asia, colloquially the Middle East, which is getting worse, and there are no signs that things are about to abate. 4 million people, 1 million in Lebanon, 3 million in Tehran have been displaced by American-Israeli bombing. And I'd mentioned this just before we started recording. The other sign that I think things are obviously going to escalate and be prolonged is that the US military has just aged its age of entry. They have raised it to 42, and they have waived the disclaimer that you can't smoke marijuana. They are definitely trying to increase the pool of available soldiers. Feels like they're trying to target me here. And Penny Wong is continuing to gaslight us into thinking we are doing the right thing. Jeremy, do you want to play the clip, please?
The US relationship matters more than some domestic politics about environmental reform.
Yep, you heard that right. That was Penny Wong, the foreign minister, saying the quiet bit out loud. For Labor, if it's a choice between Donald Trump and Australia's environment, Labor is picking Trump. So next time, when you see Anthony Albanese palling around with Donald Trump, signing deals about critical minerals or AUKUS, remember this.
Because the US relationship matters more than some domestic politics about environmental reform.
Now, obviously, this is Green's messaging, but it's pretty hard to dispute anything that Shoebridge is saying there. Grace, how are you feeling about this one?
I'm in a little bit of shock, to be honest, at how blatant that was from Penny Wong. My disappointment levels in her have just shot up quite a bit. It's really sad. It's really sad, isn't it? We've been so toxically enmeshed with the United States for such a long time, decades, and instead of us moving away to any kind of more independent position, we're just sacrificing ourselves. And for what? Because, at this point, especially under the leadership of someone like Trump, who is so capricious and unpredictable and really unstable and, a degenerate narcissist who really just needs attention and who is being directed by shadow forces who are really making the calls behind the scenes in a sort of covert way. Like if a Pacific nation or like say China did decide to bomb us, I don't think that he would help us at all. I think the military alliance is very one-sided. And the same case would happen with it's like the UK in the Second World War. Like we were bombed and they just left us.
I think America is as dangerous to its allies as it is to its
Right.
enemies. And we were chatting the other day, Grace, about this, and I do feel like at this point they're fairly ideologically committed to the Zionist project, but you sort of countered that you thought that actually they were scared. And I wonder if you want to elaborate on that a little.
That the United States is scared?
No, that Albanese, Wong and co, our local quote unquote government, are scared of American intervention here.
I would say that they are they're acting out of fear. It's quite obvious because we're so defenseless. Our military is very weak, and that's the main driver of this this partnership that is barely equal. As Penny Wong just blatantly said, it's more important. This military alliance effectively is more important than our actual natural environment, which is already in crisis and only heading south, especially now that, we've just gleefully, unconditionally entered this war in Iran. And war is the biggest source of climate destruction. And it's only going to accelerate.
On the defenselessness point, John, do you think we are made safer by making ourselves a military target for quite clearly a sophisticated opponent in Iran?
I mean, it's just really like bizarre the way that we're doing. Like we are fully every time they put out a statement, they sort of seem to. It seems like Penny Wong assumes Iran are as stupid as the Cam Press Pack.
Mm.
Like when they were saying this stuff about like that they sent a jet over to do radar, and they tried to pretend that it wasn't to help Israel and America, when Israel and America were the ones who had their radar destroyed. And then within a week, the government then admitted that it was about helping America and Israel. Like that is just it. You can always tell when it comes to the way that we deal with Israel and Israel's actions in the wider region, by the fact that they're scared to just say what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like even with Lebanon, they're not calling it. They're doing everything they can to avoid using the word invasion. And I was like, if you genuinely believed that an invasion was justifiable, you would be okay with calling it an invasion. But you know that it's not, so you're trying to avoid the language, and you're just hoping that the Canberra Press Pack will be as weak-willed as they are, so you won't get caught up on it. Like, and it's the same. We're also saying with Iran is, if they genuinely believed that we needed to be in this war, they wouldn't be trying to avoid acknowledging that we are directly involved.
Yeah. They know it's embarrassing. They know it's unjustifiable from a moral stance or even a tactical stance at this point. And like the result is we are just going to keep getting lied to and gaslit about this. And it's maddening. Junk, do you want to pull up that other clip where Penny of the condescending eyebrow is demanding what? Obedience? It's like a debasement ritual at this point. Can you play that one?
Your interjection, because I listened to you very carefully, Senator, yesterday, and even if you disagree with the conflict, you could at least call on Iran
Minister Wong,
to
please resume your seat.
de-escalate and to stop.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat.
So even if you disagree, you could at least still run our bullshit. Even if you disagree, you could still accept our framing and our propaganda and tell this sovereign nation of 100 million people that is being attacked aggressively to calm down. It's an absurd premise. It's just living in a bubble of unreality.
It's not even sophisticated anymore. Like the justifications are very transparently false.
Mm.
A lot of the justifications, come from the false pretext that was used for the Iraq invasion, 20 years ago, and 23 years ago, and many of us alive today remember that. And also too in this digital age, a lot of it's on recording. In fact, our own Prime Minister is on recording decrying the Iraq war for the very same reasons that, many on the legitimate left are criticizing it. And now he's just completely done a, 180 on it and is supporting it.
Well, I
It's
don't know if you've seen this, Grace, but at one point Penny Wong said, "This is not Iraq, it's Iran, and we're not the John Howard government." So, if you
no,
just think about
cosplaying
technically the
John
words are different.
Howard government.
What's
Like,
different? Like,
We've gone from excess eyebrows to
I know how it is the sort of
we called it what did you call it, Dave?
what's this?
You called it something condescending eyebrow.
Condescending eyebrow. I just
Yeah, well,
and the finger wag as well. She's a pointer.
yeah.
I think, I mean, I'm glad you brought up Howard. He's kind of topic de rigueur with Amy's book doing so well, which is fantastic. But I think Albanese this week had his children overboard moment where the lie was so insidious. And I'm talking about how he attended the Lakemba Mosque, got screamed at by a heckler that specifically said he is a genocide supporter. Why is he here? And then Albanese the next day went to the press with, I think his children overboard moment when he used really racist gaslighting to imply that, these guys were upset because true blue Aussie battler like me banned Islamic terrorist groups. And that's the thing that they're upset about. Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. That's the messaging. That's so dangerous. It's such a Islamophobic stereotype that these people have a terrorist gene and they're dangerous just being amongst us.
Oh, according to the Australian mainstream media, I also have a terrorist gene.
I mean,
And
I was going to ask you about that.
Sorry?
I was going to ask you about that, Greg.
Well, yeah, clearly, me, 5'3", blonde head, blue-eyed terrorist.
Yeah, Dave got a text on the line that had a question about if you had terrorist genes. So we can cut that joke if you want.
But no, globalize the enchilada, all of that.
Globalize the infant data, actually, and that's what I'm here to do, is share sexual abuse facts.
That's a fucking good line. You should pull that out next time they pull you up on some of those ambush shows that you've been experiencing.
No more for me.
Pulling the plug?
Yeah, I'm taking a break from doing any of those interviews.
Well deserved. Jeremy, we were talking about how John, you were saying about how Penny kind of expects everyone else to be as dumb as the Canberra press pack, including the Iranians. We should show what the Iranians have been pumping out in terms of their messaging, because I know that's not getting shown on Australian mainstream television. Do you want to run the dumbed down cartoon that explains it in Trump terms? like geopolitics and play school all in one with some really simple, clear messaging that I've been studying the developments of this war quite closely, and none of that was inaccurate. You know,
Especially Trump's montage of faces and Iran's like emoji just shifting from smug to Jack Nicholson. I just, credit to them for sinking to Trump's level of intellect to
Mm.
communicate in his language.
It sounds like
It
they're
is
really trying to reach him.
it is tough to be trying to follow a war where both sides are trying to out meme each other,
Mm.
and also that both neither of them can be completely trusted in their messaging.
Hmm.
Like, I remember when there was that announcement from Trump that they had come to an agreement with Iran, and then Iran was like, "We've literally never spoken to him." And then now he's claiming he's speaking to a new guy, and there's reports that new guy is actually someone who's been a part of the regime for like 5 years in the same role. Trump just hadn't met him before. Like, it's just a real, it makes it so frustrating that we're dealing with people who aren't, like, you want to at least think if people are going to risk World War III and destroy it all, they'll at least be somewhat smart in their evilness. But instead, we're having like a race to the bottom.
Yeah, I think we are genuinely led by the absolute worst amongst us, and not just in moral depravity senses, but they're just thick as shit. They are dickheads. Okay, so I'm going to show this other clip that the Iranians have put out, which, again, Iranian propaganda, not going to deny any of this. It's serving whatever the state is trying to do, but it is an effective message. It sort of links, it does that thing that I think the global left is doing, where they're now interconnecting all these struggles and identifying the problem at the heart of it, essentially American capitalism. And it links this to Gaza, it links this to everywhere, basically. Jung, do you want to run that, please?
Oof.
One vengeance for all, and the Statue of Liberty with a Baal head being destroyed at the end of that. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I was going to make, one of the comments I was going to make after the previous video was about how essentially this is Iran's revenge for 1953 for the coup of Mossadegh, who tried to nationalize Iran's oil, and MI6 and the CIA conspired to overthrow him, reinstall the Shah, and just the classic American moves, right? We don't like this person who's actually trying to do good things, who's bringing about democracy in this place where we actually want all the resources in the land. So we'll kick them out and we'll install a puppet who will do our bidding. And like the consequences of that particular coup are still playing out today. Arguably, like the Iranian Revolution and everything wouldn't have happened had they not intervened and completely destroyed Iran's hope of establishing a healthy democracy in the Middle East, in the Levant region.
I think it's undeniable, like that's where that story starts. I also think it's undeniable that Israel is basically the nexus for all of this, all of these problems. John, do you have anything you want to add to that last clip?
Well, there is this whole weird thought process that Trump clearly has that is then echoed in the media, that like this was just going to be a one and done situation. But when but then the son of the previous Ayatollah was installed as the new Ayatollah, as that was the plan if anything happened. And like if they'd done any and if they probably, and America probably knew that going in because it was known information. And now we're looking at another forever war because clearly a country that already wants vengeance, a regime that already wants vengeance, then having added stakes to the vengeance is not going to resolve in them just going back and immediately trusting the people who just broke their trust. It's just just a genuinely bizarre failure. And of course, it's come out this week that Trump was not acting on information from from his American advisors, and instead was directly lobbied by Benjamin Netanyahu and Rupert Murdoch personally.
But that's why this is so much easier for Netanyahu and for other puppeteers. They were waiting for someone as thick and as self-interested as Trump, who, so long as his need for attention is assuaged, will essentially do anything, especially to impress his powerful mates, because he is really like geopolitically misguided, and I don't think he's really interested in any kind of long-term planning or strategizing. He just loves the limelight. He's a spoilt, silver spoon fed, whatever insert noun you want to put in there. I was going to swear.
You can swear on the show.
Fuckwit. He's a
Yeah.
fuck.
He is.
And I think fuckwit is quite polite. I would say another word beginning with C and ending in unt. But
And you can do that too,
that
Grace.
might be too far, and my mother wouldn't approve. But
We're picking up what you're putting out.
But this is the classic American political model where the president is just the face, and behind the scenes are all these lobbyists and other powerful shadow operators who are really pulling the strings. In the case of Ronald Reagan, it was Merrill Lynch. George George H.W. was a spook himself. And there's just always been other more powerful forces with far more wealth to push the face around to do.
George W. was led around on a leash by his vice president, Dick Cheney, who basically worked for Lockheed Martin more than he worked for anybody else.
Correct. Yeah, and his own father too. I mean, his father was doing a lot of the heavy lifting, I reckon, because George was not the smartest, not even of the Bushes.
No. Rhodes Scholar compared to Trump, though, which is just a sign of the decline.
Tony Abbott was a Rhodes Scholar, though, Dave. So what do we really think about that?
Yeah, maybe that doesn't mean as much as we like the weight we put on that sort of thing, huh?
Actually, Tony Abbott's a good example of how bizarre so much of this in the current last week or so has been, because he's done like weekly articles demanding Australia put troops on the ground and fully back the war more than we already are. But then also this week is complaining about oil prices going up and how it should have been prevented. It's like, yeah, the way to prevent that is to not bomb where the oil comes from. Like, it's not.
It does seem like the pivot in the mainstream is that the objective is becoming opening the Strait of Hormuz, that the objective for the war, and that it like was open before the war started. It's this very circular kind of bullshit.
Yeah. All very circular.
I mean, let's move on because fuck, it's grim. But let's keep talking about the media because the ABC's gone on strike for the first time in 20 years. I'm going to let John run with this one because I'm kind of I'm a union guy. I've supported every single strike throughout my life, just basically on general principle. But I'm having a hard time giving a shit about this one. I know that's not super solidarity. I just think if you're churning out imperial propaganda and trying to cover up a genocide, you're probably getting paid enough for that. That's sort of how I feel at the moment. But maybe, John, you got a more charitable read than this.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so for the full context, the current strike is about, well, the former strike, because it only lasted 24 hours, was about calling for pay rises to match inflation, the protections around AI, being able to actually progress up the ranks, because currently how it works is junior journalists come in, ABC keeps them a junior journalist forever, and then the higher ranked people are just brought in from News Corp and Channel 9, when it used to be that you could rise up the ranks, and that's how the ABC built decades of solid journalism. And lastly, demanding changes regarding the rules for who can cover certain topics. This one is not getting much coverage. Dani Say did a good breakdown of this. Essentially, what's been happening is that ABC has been arguing that people on certain topics, seemingly mainly Gaza, have shown specific interest online. They have certain backgrounds that the ABC considers a conflict of interest, or they and also stuff, and that makes them ineligible to cover it, even if that is their area of expertise that they were brought in for.
Are these people all coincidentally Arab people who have a conflict of interest, or?
It hasn't been confirmed, but I think it's pretty obvious based on who's been covering Israel in from the ABC that they're just using this as a way to get around, because the argument that ABC journalists are making is, if what they're saying is factual and they're not bringing their personal opinions into the facts, that it should not matter what their personal opinions are. And so that is one thing that they're striking for, which should be, like, all this stuff should be fair enough if you care about, like, journalism, which the response from the managing director of the ABC was to lie about how much the pay rise offer, just like blatantly lie about it, accuse them of misinformation, and downplaying the idea of a workers' strike in general and workers' action. Because he's from Channel 9, where they're not used to having any sort of unionization, but the ABC is a very heavily unionized workforce. So, also, one thing to keep in mind as well is it's also, like, a lot of the top journalists are not a part of the union, and they did not take part in the strike. I think one of the political editors was not a part of the strike, and he still wrote throughout. Lee Sales actually came back to writing. She hadn't written since November, but she wrote 2 articles that came out during the strike. One on Kyle Sandilands, which, if you're coming back to break a strike to talk about Kyle Sandilands, you're just doing it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
You must just really love being a scab to the point where you're a political journalist writing about Kyle Sandilands' contract. And there was one about the GFC that had a bunch of factual errors because it's Lee Sales. And as lamestream media pointed out, last year she wrote 2 articles in the entire year. So her output during the strike was the same as her output for 2025. That is, like, breaking a strike gave her energy somehow. And also, some people have claimed that maybe, like, there was some trickery from the editors. She also definitely posted them on social media during the strike, which itself was a form of scabbing.
Yeah,
Like,
you can't deny that. Who's protecting her in that instance? That's, yeah.
Which I think it kind of shows one of the major issues right now within the ABC is that, like, the lower ranked journalists identified some of the major issues at the ABC right now, but then the ones that ABC really pushes were not a part of that. They were not wanting to, like, the ones they should be listening to are the ones they aren't.
Yeah, I was going to make the point. So I feel like I should qualify here that I am actually working on a contract with the ABC on a podcast about neurodivergence in women, and I've been in the Ultimo building every Tuesday for the production process, and even on there's multiple levels. It's an enormous building, and there are several departments, and even on the one floor that I sort of tend to spend most of my time on, there's clearly a very big diversity of opinions and politics. And look, this tends to be true, I think, of any big media organization. And a lot of the time there's not actually communication between the departments. They have their specific area of focus and become quite insular. But I agree with you, John. I think that unfortunately, it's the employees with less power, but have made more astute observations of, not just internal issues, but sort of like the geopolitical context. But they're being hamstrung and they're facing the major consequences. And that's sort of reflective of the sort of the larger, broader sort of hierarchical structure around the world, I suppose.
I mean, unequivocally, I suppose some of my frustration stems from the fact that, I mean, what Antoinette was put through,
Mm.
just basically when October 2023 happened and the genocide kicked off,
Or amplify the genocide that was
yeah,
ongoing prior to.
accelerated, intensified the 78 years long genocide. That's true, Grace. When that happened, in that moment, if the staff took a stand, I believe we would have been in a much stronger position in this country than we are now, where things have gotten so bad. We are seeing just blatant fascism. It's Friday today. Yeah, on Thursday this week, yesterday, Nick Hanna put out a video, a lawyer that I interviewed on this show earlier, about a woman that attended the Sydney protest against Isaac Herzog, and her place was raided by about 10 riot cops this morning at 5 a.m. They kicked in her door. I'm not sure we would have got to this state of fascist rot if the ABC had stood firm and strong and we'd all backed each other in that moment. Instead, it was left to a handful of independent weirdos that just give less of a fuck. And we're all kind of burnt out and stressed now. And as I've confessed, lacking some sympathy for these people.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had to on Tuesday last week, because the day before I did an interview with Hamish MacDonald, which was essentially a setup to sort of again frame me as an anti-Semite. Um, I was sitting in the hair and makeup chair the following day, listening to Hamish MacDonald replay a clip that was decontextualized from the interview that I did, where I was responding to um, his mention of a UN report by Pramila Patten, the special representative on sexual violence in conflict, which was an unsubstantiated report whose main source was this Israeli organization called Zaka, which were responsible for fabricating the now debunked lie about beheaded babies. And I was responding to his mention of that, and they went and got comments from two Jewish organizations, no Palestinians, no even, anti-Zionist Jews, no balance in there. They just had the clip of me and these two Jewish sources denouncing me and shaming me. And I was having to sit there in the hair and makeup chair listening to this. And I just was, ropeable, but also interestingly, I was surrounded by ABC employees who were equally disgusted that, someone within their organization would do that. So again, it shows the discord, the disharmony within the organization itself. And there's clearly been silencing of any critics of the sort of the Israeli regime, and there's been an active promotion of voices that are in support of it, and that's just it's enhancing the imbalance even further.
I think as well, one thing that it helps remember as well is this: we're not only talking about the Hamish MacDonalds. We're also talking about there were producers of shows who one thing is contracts. So I have a lot of friends who have worked at the ABC in the last 15 years. I've worked with people who've worked at the ABC for the last 15 years. The current system to get around a bunch of the stuff is most of the workforce is on 1 to 6 month contracts. So you could be doing the same job for like 10 years, but you're still on 1 to 6 month contracts, so that to reduce stuff. And like one of the things, and that also I think helps make people feel scared, is like,
Yeah,
That's
you're
the point.
like if you're moving somewhere and you're not like, and you can't even get a security that if you share a factual post, but about what Israel's doing, that you won't then get pushed to the side. Jan Fran from Out Media pointed out that they started adding a clause to try to get around the Internet Latif ruling to contracts, where essentially they started adding a clause into contracts where they can just sort of shove someone to the side for any reason. And like, also, there are journalists in a lot of spaces that are where it's also not their job to talk about this stuff in their reporting. But also, I think we should, for balance, talk about what Sky News exposed about these ABC journalists, which is that they dared, after the protest, to go to a pub, and that pub has $15 pints. Now, this article was written by two journalists, one of whom is the deputy editor of Sky News, who writes one article every 2 weeks. So this is an important deal for him. Should point out there was a disclaimer in the article that while the pints cost $15, that is a pint of an expensive beer. The photos they got of the journalists were them drinking one schooner of Newtowner, which is way cheaper. So there's a hypothetical situation where they could have bought expensive pints and therefore they don't deserve job security, they don't deserve editorial strength, they don't deserve things to get better. Like,
It's just divorced from fucking reality. If you go to a strike, you kind of go to the pub sometimes. You're surrounded by like-minded people. You've just done a thing. You've earned your first. I think that's un-Australian as Sky News to be upset about that sort of shit.
Sky News is generally un-Australian, Dave.
This is pretty true. I don't even like using that phrase. I don't know why it came out. Just using their lingo against them. While we're talking about media reporting, John, let's unpack your piece on the NDIS and how, basically my takeaway from it is that amongst this cultural rot where we have normalized so many horrific things, genocide least of all, we are also normalizing the dehumanization of disabled people, essentially.
Yeah, this is a weird area in healthcare where we're worse than America. It's actually like strange. If you look at American coverage of disability rights and disability, especially disability government assistance, there is a class reality there, partially because America has very much linked it to the military, which is not a good way to, it's not the best way to get that result, but they got there. In Australia, so if you haven't read my piece, the AFR ran an article that was then screenshotted the headline of and blasted all over right-wing internet that claimed that billions of dollars is being spent on haircuts, movie tickets, and walks in the park. Now, if you think about it for like a second, you would realize there's no fucking way to spend billions of dollars on those three things in a year. What they were actually talking about was support workers. So if you don't know what we're talking about here, we're talking about people whose job it is to come in and help out disabled people in ways that they need it. So that can be, it's usually, so it's always involving community support, which is just like giving them someone to talk to and giving them someone to help them stay connected to the community. But it also usually involves things that they cannot physically do themselves. So that can range from like cooking, cleaning, helping them with the bathroom, driving a lot of the time, going for a walk, because a lot of people can't go for a walk themselves.
Yeah.
So we are talking about something that is like at the core of what the NDIS should be. But now that the media has won their battle against autistic people getting help, they've now shifted gear to complain that something that is basically what they were saying the NDIS should be for, when they were saying that, because their argument for getting rid of autism under the NDIS was it should be focused on the people who need it most. And now they're saying to cut support workers for the people who need them most. It's just like an evil thing. And it's not in a vacuum. People fall for this not because they read one article in the AFR, but because just time and time again, we keep seeing the same misrepresentation. And there are genuine issues with the NDIS in terms of, like, one thing, credit where it's due to Ben Fordham, which I think will be the only time he's ever said on the shot, was
yeah, John.
he did a piece last week about disability tax, which is the term similar to pink tax, where people find out someone's disabled and then rack up the prices. And this has hit the NDIS a lot because it happens to disabled people. Ben loses credit because he claims he's the person to discover that this exists. But as partially that, like, but especially that this doesn't get, like, the expert opinion rarely gets covered in the NDIS discourse, partially because it's boring. I spoke to experts on background while writing my piece. It's boring sometimes when they talk because they know what they're talking about and they're focused on getting the best thing possible. But the media should also be doing that. Like, this isn't it. It's infuriating to what, like, even if we want to just take away a lot of this stuff, when we're talking about people going out to get themselves a haircut, who gives a fuck? Genuinely, who gives a fuck? Like, if they want to get a haircut, good for them.
Well,
There are, like,
someone responded to your article on my Twitter and was just like, this is just about days that I have the carer. And when the carer is there, I organize my haircuts on those days because I can't otherwise get my haircuts. That seems like a good use of the money and a good use of the resources.
Yeah, it's like, I come from the slightly radical opinion of, even if the NDIS was paying for all these haircuts, which they're not, fucking good on them. Like, it's not. We're talking about things that are just regular past lives. One thing that the AFR focused heavily on was dog walking, which there is a sense for most of these things, this is essentially how it works, is that there is, like, two ways to claim something. One is an extremely niche situation, which for dog walking is if somebody has a dog, a service dog, and they can't physically walk them themselves, they can hire a dog walker on the NDIS because the dog helps save their lives. But the other scenario is somebody who has a support worker, and when they're around their house and they like, let's go for a walk and we'll take the dog with them. And then the support worker, to make sure that there is some sort of accountability, writes down their timesheet that at that point in time, they went for a walk with the dog. And both of those just make sense. Like, it's fucking ridiculous that we are splitting hairs about fucking haircuts and dog walks in a country where billionaires avoid tax, the gas companies aren't paying tax. News Corp, one of the companies that attacks them a lot, famously doesn't declare their tax much, and when they do, it's zero. We are, like,
I want to know why the AFR doesn't want these good boys and good girls walked. What do they have against the puppies of Australia?
I mean, it's the AFR. Those dogs are not going into the CBD to do business. And like, this isn't.
They're not business dogs.
Not trading stock.
They're underclass dogs.
It's about class. It's always about class.
About class.
Yeah.
Even when it's about dogs, it's about class.
And then there were some people who asked why I didn't bring up an argument. I'm going to talk about it here because it's just a pet peeve argument of mine, so I don't use it ever, which is that you should support disability rights because you might be disabled one day. I understand the logic behind it. I don't use it because we should talk about the community now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we forget, like, there are people who need it right now. This is a community thing. Most people, there was, like, I can't remember which outlet, but there was people freaking out about the amount of NDIS recipients, and it's still less than half of the disabled community. I don't get the NDIS, and I'm bald, and I'm out here arguing about that disabled people should be able to get haircuts on the NDIS. Like, it's not. It's
coming from empathy rather than self-interest from your perspective.
Well, that's the trouble, though, is, like, further to your point, John, our empathy shouldn't hinge on our ability to relate exactly to the person's situation or because they echo our own experience. Like, no one's ever saying you shouldn't, you should support Black people because you're going to be Black one day, or you should support gay people because you're going to be gay one day. Like, people are people, and there's diversity within the spectrum of the human experience, and that you shouldn't be precluded from relating to each other just because of some difference in identity that might be permanent or it might be changing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And as well, if they want to talk about stuff, there's actually real disability stuff going on right now that isn't getting coverage. Something that I noticed is the Liberal National Party are pushing anti-vax shit in the Senate. Like,
Do we have that clip, Jeremy?
I rise to speak about recent data which shows that approximately 1 in 27 Australian children are now diagnosed with autism. Now, even more alarmingly, if this trend continues, by some estimates there may be as many as 1.2 to 1.3 million autistic Australians in the next decade. So what's driving it? Well, our experts can't exactly tell us what is driving it, but they can certainly tell us what is definitely not causing it, and that's the childhood vaccination schedule. And I look at that and I say, really? Well, let's look at some statistics here. In the 1980s, autism was considered a rare condition with a prevalence of around 1 in 2,500 children. In the 90s, it was about 1 in 500, and currently, as I said, 1 in 27 Australian children. Now, coincidentally, over the same period, the Australian immunisation program has ballooned dramatically. In the 80s and 90s, there were relatively few on the schedule, and now, between the 2000s and 2010s, additions included Hep B at birth, haemophilus influenza type B, pneumococcal, rotavirus, varicella, meningococcal strains and boosters crammed into every one of the first few years of life. As the schedule grew, coincidentally, so did the rates of autism, but that's probably just a coincidence, isn't it? And it certainly doesn't require any further investigation, does it? In the meantime, across the Pacific, late last year, in the United States, their Centre for Disease Control updated its autism and vaccines page to say, quote, "The claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim because studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism." So the US CDC hasn't ruled it out, but rest assured the Australian TGA has, saying their systems have not identified any safety signals suggesting a link between autism and vaccine. Oh, well, that's it then. No need to do any further studies. Do the studies protect our kids?
I mean, there's so much to unpack there. I got 3 quick points. First is that Alex Antics is clearly a fucking idiot because everyone's quite acutely aware that the American CDC has been gutted. They are having the anti-science, Christo-fascistic push. I don't think we should be following their lead as a sensible thing. The second point is he just pointed to a whole bunch of correlation rather than causality, and he's pretending that that's logical. I could make the same exact argument he made, but say that T20 cricket is the cause of increased autism. Say the Indian Premier League is why there are so many autistic people. It's the same exact period of time. And then I guess that'll fucking do. Grace, jump in.
I just want to point out it's not a rise in autism itself, it's a rise in diagnoses because of awareness that has been raised and how our perception of autism, which was previously quite narrow and focused on people with high assistive needs and less focused on the entire spectrum of autistic presentation that has so much variation in it. If you've met one person with autism, as they say, you've met one person with autism. And now that we have more of an open discussion, we have better representation of different types of presentation of autism. For example, the way that females present who are autistic often is starkly different to how males present. There's obviously overlap. But, autism used to be considered a boy's condition, a boy's problem. And that is definitely not the case. Speaking as an autistic woman, but it's just, it's so dumb and sad for Alex Antic, who clearly isn't aware of all of the information that has come out, debunking this myth that was largely spread by a gastroenterologist, I think, in the UK.
So I last night ended up spending most of the night doing an autistic look into this. I want to see just how fucked it all is. So I'm going to quickly info dump about the one study that once suggested that there was a connection. So this study has no actual gastroenterologist on it because they all came to a different finding to the person who wrote it. So they had people test it. They all just didn't agree with his findings. So there was a guy who, on testing 12 autistic children who also had gastro issues, that he asked he told everyone involved that it's about testing whether issues in the bowels and autism are connected. There was not even mention of vaccines in most of it. There was of the 12 parents, they asked them, what do you think caused autism? And according to the results page, most of them said the vaccine as their opinion. One of them said an ear infection. And in the findings of this research paper, the guy said that he made up a brand new gastro disease that he claims how it works is that the measles gets caught in your intestines, giving you bowel problems. The bowels then create morphine inside your body. The morphine travels up to your brain and causes the autism. Now,
You can just make
that
up
does not exist. We have proven that does not the measles vaccine does not give you measles. We have proven that the disease that he claimed existed does not exist. Also, one of the people who proved it wrong was one of the scientists he hired to prove it right. It's then, during the paper, he cited one other paper by someone who had already lost their doctor's license before the paper came out. That paper claims that the guy had cured autism and the cure was that person's bone marrow. They put that person's bone marrow into pills.
Just his? Like no one else's bone
just
marrow?
his.
Just his. He's the source. What the?
Also, can I just add, one of the
Yeah.
major points here in this discussion is that autism is from birth to death. It is, it's genetic. It's a herited condition.
Yeah.
I feel like I caught it off you, Grace. I'm not sure. Okay.
Don't be careful, Dave. You might catch terrorism off me as well.
No, I already got that one. You know.
So there's actually a lot of research by a journalist called Brian Deere who then questioned the fact that the guy who wrote the paper received funding from a lawyer who wanted to do a mass lawsuit of things. So the funding set a requirement to find a link between autism and the vaccine so they could sue for it. He filed a patent for a new vaccine that doesn't cause autism 6 months prior to putting out the paper. That vaccine was created alongside the guy who claims his bone marrow cures autism. Although we might not be sure because they spelled his name wrong on the paper, on the filing paper.
I just have to go to bone marrow guy for a second. That's the plot from The Last of Us, that this one person has the cure from the zombie outbreak.
Yeah. This journalist asked questions. He then filed for defamation against the journalist. The journalist's like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then the moment that the judge ruled that, yes, the journalist has to see the documents and the medical records of the kids, the lawyers drove straight to the courthouse to drop the case. But luckily, the journalist was smart enough to check the names of all the kids. So he then reached out to the parents and found that the guy also fucking lied about what the parents said. Most of the parents did not even think about autism and vaccines being connected at all. And so this one paper has been debunked in every possible way. Also, Alex Antic complained that we're not doing enough research into it. We haven't stopped doing research into it because it's all the research that gets done into the cause of autism because of people like him. But one person who refuses to do that is the guy who made the paper because his bosses told him, you need to now do a follow-up paper with an actual large sample size, and he left the job. And his boss called him a fraud. Like, it's not...
Well, he is. He's some sick fuck that wants people to eat on his bone marrow for some reason.
But then, this is just an insane thing that happened in the 2000s. It's still happening now. And one weird thing about this is you'd think the media would cover Alex Antic calling for that in the Senate. Not only did they not cover that, 2 days prior, there was a vote in the Senate for a motion which includes calling for all documents regarding the TGA and the World Health Organization to be handed over to Alex Antic, including ones that could, one that says any documents including internal advice and memos assessing the implications of these World Health Organization collaborating center affiliations for TGA's independence, decision-making on therapeutic goods approvals, or Australian sovereignty in medicines/vaccines regulation. So every member of the Liberal National Party voted in favour of this in the Senate. It got shot down by Labor and the Greens and the Independents. But they're just coming up with conspiracy theories that the World Health Organization is somehow controlling the TGA and telling them not to say that autism is caused by vaccines, because they haven't proven 100% that it doesn't. That's just because you can't prove a false negative. They've proven his theory for how it happens wrong. They've proven that it's never happened. There's been studies of 10,000 children that did not find a single example. But weirdly, again, that wasn't covered. This vote on anti-vax shit. And I'm like, even then, I've been told for years that the reason we need live blogs at all these news outlets is so they can mention the stuff that isn't worth a full article. That didn't even get mentioned in the fucking live blogs. It's just, even the stenographers aren't covering it. And it just shows how normalized this shit has become.
Yeah.
That you can accuse autistic people of being frauds because they want to get haircuts, or you can spread conspiracy theories that involve the idea that somehow dying of measles is better than having autism. It's just so infuriating about stuff where the answer just should be, who gives a fuck? Just let people live their lives.
It should be. I do have a conspiracy theory about this while we're going into wacky town. I think autistic people are demonized so much because they have exceptional pattern recognition skills and are society's early warning system for fascist bullshit. Every autistic person I speak to has just implicitly understood what's been happening, what's going on, where we're headed for a very long time, while, quote unquote neurotypicals have just sort of been confused by all of this. This is why I think they tend to get demonized every single time fascism rears its ugly head.
Yeah.
And speaking of people who should be demonized, Grace, you wanted to talk about pedophiles? Sorry, alleged.
Great.
Segues, John. That's great, man. Smooth.
Edited great. I'm just jump on the pylon, John. It's been going for 6 weeks straight. What's another?
I think I've been piling on you for years.
Yes, you have been. And I adore your pylons because I understand them to be a language of love, which is also reciprocated by me.
Yeah, Grace, there was a story that you mentioned about the Queensland Young Australian of the Year. You want to fill people in on this one?
Yes. So the Queensland Young Australian of the Year, the current Young Australian of the Year, Jarrab Branfield Bradshaw, was charged with possessing child exploitation material after police allegedly found content on both his work and home devices. And Jarrab also happens to be a youth worker. And it was a friend of mine who actually alerted me to this news story early last week. And her reaction was one of total incredulity that someone working with children would also be intent on harming them. And my response was, at the risk of sounding crude, you don't go fishing in the ocean. Oh, sorry, you don't go fishing in the desert. You do go fishing in the ocean. Yeah, you don't go fishing in the desert. You look for your prey where your prey is most likely to be, and that includes predators of children. I'm not sure if you guys watched the Four Corners special last year after the sort of shocking revelations, in particular, the revelations that Joshua Brown, who offended in 24 Victorian daycare centres, which resulted in 70 charges, that he'd been so calculated in his actions. And this is the disconnect. I think that it's long been established within the general public that offending against children sexual contact with children is wrong, and it causes harm. But there's yet to be a general acceptance of the motivations of offenders, and the fact that they are very deliberate and manipulative in all of their behaviours, not just in their targeting of children, that they are prepared to manipulate anyone in the child's network or in their own network in order to achieve their aim. And these are what we call professional offenders, these recidivist offenders. In 2023, at the end of 2023, the University of New South Wales actually led a study, a survey of child sexual offending behaviours and attitudes among Australian men. It was an anonymised survey that, a portion of men participated in, and the questions were very well designed to prevent lying. And in fact, they, throughout the process, if the person was clearly lying, they would actually kick them out and discount their account. And the survey found that the majority of what we would call undetected child sex offenders, those who are willingly harming children and repeatedly harming children and have no interest in stopping, they don't seek support services, that these men with offending histories are most likely to be male, Caucasian, working in a relatively secure job, earning a decent wage, socially supported, and 2 to 3 times more likely to be working with children, proving that they choose careers that give them direct access to the individuals that they want to target.
I mean, it makes so much sense. Consider also the case of Catholic priests surrounded by choir boys constantly. That personality type works itself into environments where it can prey. You've touched on something that I've sort of like a cognitive disconnect, Grace, that I've experienced in my reporting on Gaza, where there is an inability, just because you're not an evil person and your thought processes aren't like that, there's sort of like a gormless naivety where people keep saying, oh, why doesn't Penny Wong understand what's really happening over there? And it's just like, no, she's complicit, not stupid. It's a sort of a similar vibe with the way we ascribe, I don't know, this perception that, pedophiles are not able to slip into modern normal society and disguise themselves with respectableness and,
But that's exactly what they do. That's
Yes.
exactly what they do. Is that they hide behind a deliberately cultivated facade of good character. And that's why it's really important to acknowledge as well the work of Harry James and Jared Grice and Josh Burns on the Your Reference Ain't Relevant campaign to remove good character references from the sentencing process. So this is after an offender has actually received a conviction, that at that point, it's obvious that this person is not of good character because they have been proven to have offended against children. Because there's nothing. I'm sorry, there's no redeemable factor. If you have abused a child, especially if you've done it repeatedly, knowingly, willingly, and manipulated all the adults around you in the process to neutralize their protective instincts, you are clearly a menace.
Yeah. And potentially the president of the United States.
I would say, maybe I'll get defamed for this, but I would say 100% that the president of the United States is a child sex offender.
Oh, no, I agree. I just say not every child sex offender gets to become the president of the United States, but the president.
But there is, I would say that the Venn diagram between pedophiles or actually, I think it is important to clarify that not all child sex offenders are pedophiles and not all pedophiles are child sex offenders. The difference being that someone who is a pedophile doesn't necessarily want to harm children and may have awareness that their urges are wrong and seek help. And we should encourage that those individuals seek help. There are world-leading services here in Australia, such as Stop It Now, which is a hotline that is available to people who have sexual feelings towards children and don't want to act on them. So there's pedophiles and then there's child sex offenders. Child sex offenders are people who have actually harmed against children, and they may not identify as pedophiles because often these people don't actually identify as having sexual interest in children. Their motivations are more to do with entitlement, power, control, misogyny, etc. But I would say that the Venn diagram between willful child sex offenders and power is actually a very neat circle. In fact, it's an organized crime ring.
I mean, we are seeing that quite clearly. I've spent days going through the Epstein files, and I can't dispute a thing you say. In fact, it seems almost like the assault of children is part of how they maintain accountability amongst their cabal with each other. If you're willing to commit these horrible crimes with me, then we can back each other up. We are complicit together. We will cover each other.
And part of that complicity is actually forced by the blackmail that is created amongst these groups. It's that they all have dirt on each other, and they're not just interested in silencing their victims who may potentially expose them. They're interested in silencing each other within the scheme. And that is how the infrastructure, one of the ways that the infrastructure remains robust, is because a lot of powerful people stand to lose a lot if they are thrown under the bus. So that is actually the main motivation for protecting each other. They might not actually like each other. They just share interests, and those are usually business interests and interests in nefarious activities.
Yep. And the more powerful, the more nefarious the activities, because
Tends to be
opportunity-
that way. Yeah.
It does. This is thanks for sharing that with us, Grace. It's obviously difficult stuff to talk about. Less difficult. We're gonna wrap up on a slightly lighter note. Let's go into Afroman territory, and then we can go and get high. John, what's been going on with Afroman and the local sheriff's department the last couple of years, please? Because this is kind of a good story.
Yeah, so there's a rare win. The musician Afroman, who you might know from the song Because I Got High, a few years ago, his house was wrongfully raided by the local sheriff's office. And it was awful. Like, he got a lot of it on security camera footage. Instead of just opening his gate, they destroyed it. It wasn't locked. They just chose to break it. They broke down his door. They pointed guns at his wife and children. He wasn't home at the time. They took a bunch of money. They went through everything he had, and they found no evidence of any crimes. They didn't even find weed, which people assumed they might have found with him.
Out of character.
Well, he definitely wasn't in the military then.
But so he rightfully demanded the $4,000 they took in cash from his house back. He even proved that he paid taxes on it. They gave him back $3,600. So in response, he released a song. I think it was called "Who's Gonna Fix My Gate." And he showed the footage of the police destroying his gate, destroying his door, and he accused them of stealing his money. The police then launched an investigation into themselves, like they always do, and found that they didn't steal his money. They just simply miscounted. And so he released more songs. He released one song per person who took part in the raid. And they were all comedic in tone. One of them was called Lemon Pound Cake, because one of the police officers got distracted by a lemon pound cake that was sitting on the counter. One of them was called Randy Walters is a son of a bitch, which had the chorus, Randy Walters is a son of a bitch. That's why I fucked his wife. So he just went in this really weird way, and he would use the footage of them doing silly stuff, which also included them cutting the security cameras. So they were actively trying to hide what they were doing. So in response, every member of the sheriff's office sued for defamation, which then became now a free speech issue, because people should be allowed to criticize the police. Then the court case got what I would describe as funny. Afroman went to court in a suit made of American flags and in sunglasses with American flags on them.
The best piece of commentary I heard on that was that Afroman is dressing the way that Japanese anime artists draw Americans, basically. And he did.
It was, he brought one witness with him, which wasn't his wife or his kids. it was the ex-wife of one of the police officers.
Is it Randy
and
Walters' ex-wife?
I can't remember if it was Randy. I don't
Son of a
think
bitch?
so. So, the ex-wife was actually important because one of the police officers claimed the diss track led to his wife leaving him. And so he had that ex-wife come to the stand, and her testimony was great. Getting asked questions by Afroman's lawyers, she testified that the police that originally didn't care about the songs and didn't find any harm. And then when the police officer's lawyer cross-examined her, he for some reason asked her, there was no protection orders against your ex-husband, and she replied, yes, there is. So just completely blew up their own case there for that one.
Wow.
But what was great is the police just didn't think about what their arguments were going to be. So for Randy Walters, he had 2 defamatory statements, that he's a son of a bitch, and Randy's genuine argument in court was that his mum is dead, therefore Afroman can't know whether she was a bitch.
That's
Which,
I'm sorry, but you can't defame the dead.
yeah.
also in own goal there. Like, we're not actually talking about your mum, Randy Walters. We're just saying you're awful, you know? It's a metaphor.
Also, as the Daily Show pointed out, he could have meant Randy Walters' dad.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure. But
gender neutral term, bitch.
yeah. And also so Randy Walters' other argument was about the claim that he fucked his wife. But on the stand, when the lawyer was like, so that's the defamatory statement, it didn't happen, Randy Walters replied saying he does not know if it happened or not. And said that he can't say for sure whether Afroman fucked his wife. And then he got mad at the lawyer for being confused by that answer.
I mean, this is America.
Yeah. And
this is America.
There was one point where they tried to argue that the children of some of the police officers got picked on at school because of the videos. And Afroman made just a really good point that his kids had guns pointed at them. Afroman, he said that they're trying to flip themselves into being the victims when they were the perpetrators. They went to his house. They're the ones who broke his stuff. They're the ones who flipped off his security cameras. They did everything that was wrong.
Classic United States cop ploy.
Yeah, there's a playbook here.
Yeah.
Also, lemon pound cake. I will just say, his argument for getting for the damages he's received from the song Lemon Pound Cake is that when he goes to restaurants now, they give him a free slice of lemon pound cake, and that people send him lemon pound cakes to his house.
That's not damages. That's great. He's getting free cake. It's not bad. That's good.
But after a 2-day trial, the jury completely found Afroman had not defamed a single police officer, and it's like a genuine good win for free speech because, like, you should be able to criticize the police, and it's just better that it's really funny how he did it.
I mean, he sounds like a true American patriot at this point, fighting for free speech and democracy and the right to say fuck the police. Jung, do you have like a clip from the Afroman saga around that?
It is his right to say what he wants to say. This goes back to 2022 when Afroman's home was raided following search warrants related to possession and trafficking in drugs and kidnapping. Though he was never charged, the attorneys for the deputies suing say Afroman used security video from the raid on his home and put it in a music video using deputies' likeness without permission. Again, this jury in Adams County finding he did not defame those deputies. Here's Afroman speaking directly after that verdict.
I didn't win. America won. America still has freedom of speech. It's still for the people, by the people.
Afroman becoming emotional there as he says this fight was bigger than him. It was about free speech.
No notes.
Perfect.
No notes.
Well done, Afroman.
Who knew that the hero we needed right now was 90s singer Afroman?
I mean, everything else is strange and bizarre and upside down. This makes as much sense as anything else, really.
Yeah.
Oh. You can't top that. That's giving me hope. Giving me hope in this dark world.
Thank you, Afroman. Well, let's wrap it up on that hopeful note. Does anyone have anything else they want to add as a top tip for the end of the week or anything like that? Grace, you? Anything we should watch for?
More Afroman.
John?
If you're in Melbourne, go to the comedy festival. There's a ton of shows from artists who, a lot of them have been struggling because cost of living hit them, and art isn't what everyone spends their money on when they're struggling. If you're looking for people to talk about politics, there's a lot of them. I know Gabby Bolt's talking about politics in her show this year, and she's great. If you're looking for people who don't talk about politics, there's a lot of them as well. Like, it's just, if you want to laugh, go out, go see some artists you haven't seen before. I recommend people like Harry Jun or Lena Moon. They're and Meg Yeager. They're all incredible. Just go out and see some comedy and help support artists.
Yeah, my top tip is to sign up to the True North newsletter, which is being put together by Denise Schravel, who you might know from the Ozpol community, who's helped on this show, helped put it together. And what she does with True North is she sort of correlates across the indie media sphere in Australia. So you don't need to go to social media to look for posts from Et or Michael West or The Shot or Deep Cut. She puts highlights in a newsletter that she mails out every day. She's done more than 500 editions of this thing, and I think it's a really great service for people trying to stay informed in Australia. So that's my top tip this week. truenorthnews.substack.com, and you can sign up for the daily mailing list, and I think you should probably do so. Cheers. Thanks for hanging with us this Sunday morning. Thank you, Grace and John, for your company and expertise. It's been a pleasure.
Always. Thanks,
for having
Dave.
us.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Hasta la pasta.
Lemon pound cake, he's a family guy. Lemon pound cake, the munchies because he got hot.